Read by almost everyone at school, staged in theaters across the land, and long valued by conservatives as highly as by liberals, Shakespeare's plays remain common ground, one of the few places where Americans can meet and air their disparate views. For well over 2 centuries, Americans of all stripes, presidents and activists, writers and soldiers, have also turned to Shakespeare's works to give voice to what could not readily or otherwise be said. That engagement dates back to before the Revolutionary War, when Hamlet's famous soliloquy, "To be or not to be," was appropriated both by defenders of British rule and by those seeking to overthrow it. Not long after, Shakespeare's contentious histories offered the Founding Fathers, all too aware of the vulnerabilities of the government they had created, a roadmap for where the young republic might be heading. Those who read these plays with a view to the treachery, perfidy, treason, murder, cruelty, sedition, and rebellions of rival and unbalanced factions, President John Adams warned, would find one of the most instructive examples for the perusal of this country. A prescient Adams even reworked a passage from Henry V to show how a foreign despot might collude in putting a more pliable leader in the White House. Yet, in those early years of the Republic, it seemed improbable that Americans would adopt England's national poet as their own. They had fought the British in 1776, and in 1812 would again be at war. Moreover, the strain of Puritanism entrenched in the northern colonies was rabidly anti-theatrical. The Quaker William Penn, who founded the Pennsylvania colony, had attacked the infamous plays of writers like Shakespeare and helped enact laws suppressing their performance. In 1774, the First Continental Congress was still admonishing colonists to shun theaters. Pennsylvania only ended its ban on playgoing in 1789, and Massachusetts, the last holdout, in 1793. How Shakespeare won over America in the early 19th century is something of a mystery. The absence of rivals had a good deal to do with it. So too did the growing familiarity with his works. Actors from Britain toured the land with a repertory rich in Shakespeare, while school books featured his famous speeches. One of them, McGuffey's Reader, first published in 1836, sold more than 120 million copies over the next 80 years. Another, Scott's Lessons in Elocution, found its way into the humblest of American homes, including the log cabin in which Abraham Lincoln was raised. Yet there was more to it than the lack of competitors and Shakespeare's widespread availability in school books and cheap editions. The French author Alexis de Tocqueville, gathering material for his book Democracy in America, noted that he first picked up a copy of Henry V in a log cabin while touring the United States in 1831, and added that there is hardly a pioneer's hut that does not contain a few odd volumes of Shakespeare. A half-century later, the German writer Karl Knorz said of America that there is certainly no land on the whole earth in which Shakespeare and the Bible are held in such high esteem. It helped that in a Bible-obsessed nation, Shakespeare's language sounded so similar to that of the King James Version, 1611, contributing to the sense that his plays were a kind of secular scripture. Yet it was more than the these and thous of Elizabethan English that drew Americans to his words. Many of the issues that preoccupied Shakespeare and his contemporaries in the late 16th century, the dangers of autocratic rule, the imagined threat posed by those of different races, religions, or nationalities, the slippery boundaries of gender, were still unsettling to 19th century Americans. Shakespeare had usefully framed these as conflicts, resolved through bloodshed in his histories and tragedies, and more peacefully, if provisionally, in his comedies, social and political collisions that could be readily viewed through the prism of America's past and present. Yet much of the mystery of why has America embraced Shakespeare remains unsolved. All one can safely say is that Shakespeare took root in the United States because he spoke to what Americans cared about. But his plays were not interpreted by everyone in the same ways, especially as divisions deepened between social classes, between the industrial North and slaveholding South, between new waves of immigrants and earlier settlers, as well as between those who believed in America's manifest destiny and those wary of such imperial ambitions.